Hey everybody! Today is that day where I share your personal ghost stories that some of you have submitted. This first story comes from Alice, located in England. She's lived in the same apartment for about 3 years with nothing paranormal or spooky ever happening during that time period. Around 8 months ago, however, she started to, her health started to take a bit of a fall, and she started having really bad nightmares about demons, and she would wake up with sleep paralysis. She would often wake up to the sounds of 2 knocks on her bedroom door, but she always assumed that she just dreamt it. After getting her health back on track, she was able to sleep better, but she would still hear those 2 knocks on her bedroom door in the middle of the night. She still assumed that it was a dream, some sort of dream. You know how sometimes when you are in a dream state and you think you are hearing something, but maybe it was something your subconscious was playing in. I mean, I've had that happen before many times where, like the dreams where maybe you're falling asleep, right? And you start to have this vision of you falling, and then you might jolt yourself awake. I mean, at least that's what I'm kind of relating this to, because that's the first thing that popped into my mind. One night when her boyfriend had stayed over, she had stayed up a little bit later than usual. While she was up, she actually heard 2 knocks on her door. He freaked out and thought that there was somebody actually in the apartment. She knew that there was no person there, but it was actually comforting to her, and it confirmed that she had not been actually dreaming that these knocks, that they were actually happening. And she says it still continues to happen to this very day. This next story comes from Colin, located in Iowa. Last July, he was staying at his grandparents' house, and they had actually passed away about 3 years ago. He was getting settled and just kind of checking the house out, and he went to go see his grandma's old bedroom. The minute that he stepped foot in that bedroom, he got really lightheaded, to the point where he actually could have fallen over. He thought maybe it was because the air was old and maybe he himself needed some fresh air. He went to then open the window, but once he touched it, he had a really weird, strange surge of energy that went flying through his body, and he couldn't actually see for a second, so I'm assuming he lost the ability, vision. He stumbled out of there as quickly as he possibly could, and once he basically walked past the doorway into that room, and back out into the hallway, he was completely fine. And he hasn't even been to that room since. This next story comes from Josie, located in Australia. Her grandfather had actually died about 7 years ago, and what had happened was he had gone to feed the chickens, and he had fallen and hit the back of his head. And by the time they got him inside of the house and they were on the phone with the ambulance, calling, he had actually already passed. She says the important part about this part is the fact that he had died in the house on a couch that they still use currently. One night she had actually chosen to stay with her grandmother. She got up really early the next morning to get something to drink, and as she's walking through the pitch black kitchen, she sees this white mist that started to form the shape of a human man. She says that it was startling because she shouldn't have been able to see anything since it was so dark. She quickly then ran out of the kitchen. She was completely terrified since she had actually never experienced anything, I guess, to this kind of paranormal level before. She returned to the bedroom and decided to go. I heard a creak, and it scared me. She decided to go back to her bedroom, go to sleep, and she ended up waking up again. But this time it was to the sound of the creaking of the bedroom door. She also makes mention that this bedroom, the bed itself, was the bed that her grandfather had slept in when he was alive. She also says that the house has floorboards, which makes it very difficult to sneak in the house, and I know this very well. Like I've said before, I live in an old house with wooden floors, and these floors creak like nobody's business, so there's no such thing as walking around quiet in this house, at least, so I totally get that. So what she's saying is she didn't hear anyone creak, the floor. She didn't hear the floor creaking, to anyone walking up to the bedroom door. She just heard the door itself creaking open. She then turned over in bed to face where the door is, and she didn't see anybody or anything there. Just the door that was closed was now, in fact, open. This next story comes from Molly, located in South England. She says that her home used to be the residence of a World War I soldier. She's always felt his presence throughout the house, but particularly her bedroom. One night, as she's about to fall asleep, she starts to feel movement around her. She immediately opens her eyes, and what she sees is a pitch black, opaque figure, which looked like a shadow figure lying directly next to her. She says it was so close that it was almost touching her. She stayed laying still, and so did the figure. In a matter of seconds, it just vanished. Since then, she has had the same exact experience twice with the same shadow figure who she believes is the deceased World War I soldier. This next story comes from Zoe, located in Eastbourne in the UK. When she was younger, she was given this music box by her nan, which plays a really creepy tune, but don't all old music boxes play kind of like something creepy little tune, or they're just using music boxes in horror movies now to make them sound kind of creepy? She was around 10 years old, and she decided to bring this music box into school for show and tell because she thought it was a pretty interesting thing to share. However, one of her friends ended up breaking the music box and it stopped working. She was kind of embarrassed and not really too proud of that, so she didn't want her parents to find out that it had broke, so she hid it on a shelf in her room so that her parents couldn't find it or couldn't see it. A couple years later, she was 13 and her nan passed away. A few months later, she had a friend sleep over, and she was telling her friend about this music box and how it broke and how it didn't work anymore. She pulled out the music box and was showing it to her friend. She was saying also that when it did work, that the music only worked when the lid was open, before it was broken. She was describing to her how it broke and all that stuff. She said that they sat there for about 5 minutes talking about this box. And she told her friend about her nan, and at that very moment when she mentioned her nan, the music began to play. Her friend freaked out, but still stayed the night, and to this day, the music box still works. This next story comes from Amelia, located in Adams, Tennessee. Her and her mom took a summer trip to Adams, Tennessee. To go see the Bell Witch Cave. They were actually the only two people besides the tour guide, who was the lady who owned the property. They were the only ones there for the tour. Once they were inside of the cave, the tour guide's walkie-talkie actually started to go off sporadically and randomly. It then started to sound like there were people at the entrance of the cave, like maybe people who showed up late for the tour, but no one entered the cave, and no one was there. There was nobody. When they reached the very back part of the cave, the tour guide was telling the history when Amelia saw this dark gray ball of smoke that seemed to be moving in between them and the tour guide. She watched it move and she tried to debunk it, like in her head, like all the things that this could be. Later that day, she had actually told her mom about it, and her mom says that she didn't see it. A year later, they ended up going back to the caves, actually for Halloween, and she told the group and the other tour guide, who was somebody else, what she had seen. And she said that the owner had actually seen the same thing when she was cleaning up there the other day. This next story comes from Trinity, located in Virginia. Her dad died actually when she was around 4. And one night she had a couple friends over and they were all sitting in a circle doing, I guess you can call, a seance. They put a ball in the middle of the circle that they were all sitting in, and they were trying to see if they can get it to move, basically. When nothing happened, some of her friends started making provoking comments. One of them said, if you really loved your daughter, why would you leave her? And Trinity wasn't too happy about that, so she actually told them that's enough. And right after that, she saw with her eyes the ball flew right past her friend's head, slammed on the wall, and it fell straight down. And she said this was strange because it was a ball that would bounce, but it did not bounce. This next story comes from Mackenzie, located in California. When she was around 9 or 10, her closet door would actually open every night around 10 o'clock. It was absolutely terrifying. She told a group of her friends about it, and all of them believed her except for one. She finally convinced that one friend to have a sleepover. She forced her friend to stay up, you know, at least past 9 to wait for this closet door thing to happen. They had all the lights off and they're just hanging out, chilling, chatting, doing all that stuff. And then suddenly the closet door slid open. They were both staring at the open space, which had to have been about a foot. So the closet door had opened about a foot. They ended up spending the rest of the night in the living room, and that friend has never slept over ever again. This next story comes from Allie, who is located in Omaha, Nebraska. Allie has this good friend named Zachary, and she would often stay the night at his house, and they would often sleep in the living room, and they'd watch TV, eat food, and you know, all that kind of fun stuff. She would normally sleep on the floor, but this one particular night she decided to sleep on the recliner. Where the recliner was sitting, she says you can see straight down the hallway. In the middle of the night, she woke up to the sound of like murmurs. She happens to look down the hallway and she sees a shadow figure. And it's just standing there staring at her. And she immediately stands up, turns the kitchen light on, and then she goes back to sleep. The next weekend she stays over, same thing, and she tells her friend Zachary that she wants to sleep on the couch this time. Because when you're sleeping on or laying or where the couch is, you can't see into the hallway. She falls asleep. She then again wakes up to the sound of murmurs. She opens her eyes and she sees the shadow figure standing right next to the recliner where she had been sleeping the last weekend. She closes her eyes and she tells the figure that she has no problem with him. She herself felt it was a man. She said to just leave her alone when she was sleeping. After that, she never had any of those problems ever again. Her friend Zachary actually also knew that his house has been haunted since he was a child. Well, that's it for this week's stories. If you would like to submit your paranormal personal ghost experience, please go down to the description underneath this video and follow the rules. And please be sure to read thoroughly. I only accept stories that are submitted through the email that is below. Anything that is submitted through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any other social media, even here on YouTube. I will probably read your story, but in order for me to organize it a lot quicker and a lot easier, it's much easier for me to read them off of the email that is provided down below. So please read down below to find out how you can submit your story. I'm also going to start a alien story series here as well, so please feel free to submit your alien encounter story or UFO encounter story, but please title your email either my ghost story, my paranormal experience, or my alien or my UFO experience, or any cryptozoology experience you have had with any cryptid. Please go down below, find out how to enter. Hope you enjoyed this week's video. Stay tuned for next week, and I love you guys, and I'll see you later. Bye!